Hello. If you are here for the Systems Alignment Innovation Hub Community Power Network, you are in the right place. We'll wait on a couple others to join us and then we'll get started. Oh, we got a lot to cover. Isn't that right, Dr. Espinal? Yeah. Hello. All right. Let's get into it. Welcome. Good afternoon. Good morning. Good evening. Some people are in the evening right now, believe it or not. I won't name that person, but I'm so happy that she's on with us today. I am Nastasia Moore, and I will be facilitating or hosting Community Power Network today and pretty much every month alongside with my beautiful friends, colleagues, and experts across the nation. Y'all, it's still Black History Month, and so we're still celebrating. It's Black History Month every month for me. But in celebration of Black History Month, we have a special Do It for the Culture. We'll get into it. He is a superstar in our eyes, and he is on the call. But we'll introduce him, Mr. Cotton, a little bit later once we get into the Do It for the Culture piece. Okay, so let's get into today. Okay, Nastasia. You all have already started this. This is what I love about this space. Like people already know what to do and how to do the thing. Before I even put anything up, people were like introducing themselves into the chat. And so if you could introduce yourself in the chat, where you're from, your name, your pronouns, your racial identity. I believe we have somebody on here new. And if you're not new and you've been here before, it's my oversight. And so blame it on my mind, not on my heart. Is it Angel or Angel? How do I pronounce this? How do I pronounce your name?
Angel's fine, but I've been here before a few times.
Have you? Okay, perfect. Well, welcome back. If there's anybody newer in the space,
I actually
come
have a
off
quick
mute and introduce.
question. Is the chat like, can you see the old messages, or is it just like since you joined? Because I'll rethrow in my introduction if it's only since you joined.
That's a good question. I can see it. Can everybody else
You,
see it?
you were here before me though.
Oh, that's right. That's just true.
I'll just throw it in there again.
Okay.
Oh,
Appreciate you.
thanks for the
Appreciate you.
invitation.
Yeah, no worries. Welcome back. I'm so happy that you're here. Okay, everybody else. Name, introduce yourself, racial identity, where you're calling in from. If I may, we have a long journey to go on today. What does it look like? As always, we don't start any business without land and labor. So we are going to acknowledge the land and the labor, do a land and labor acknowledgement. Um, our working community agreements, Lamont Green always reminds us how to be in community together, but better, how might we be in this liberated together and be courageous in conversation as we dive through some of the newer material. A recap of last session and then getting back into PAR, Participatory Action Research. All right, if that sounds good with everyone, just give me an emoji or something so I know I can move on. Cool. Nice. Okay, so before we get started, we have updated our land, both our land and labor acknowledgements. Thank you to Miss Lori Harris. And so if I could just have somebody come off mute and read our land acknowledgement to get us started for today.
I can jump back in there since I already chatted.
Oh, yes.
So for our land acknowledgement today, as we gather today across many lands and digital spaces, we acknowledge that the work of systems alignment and equity is rooted in histories of displacement, resilience, and the ongoing presence of Native communities. We recognize that the land we live and work on is the ancestral homeland of Indigenous nations who have stewarded these lands since time immemorial, land that was taken yet never ceded. We honor the enduring strength of Indigenous people, their cultures, knowledge systems, and their leadership in advancing community-centered solutions that promote health, healing, and justice. We also acknowledge that system barriers rooted in colonial policies continue to disproportionately impact Indigenous communities in public health, housing, social services, and beyond. We commit to finding ways to invest in Native-led solutions to embed Indigenous and ancestral knowledge in our systems change work to challenge and dismantle colonial systems and establish sustained and reciprocal relationships with Native justice efforts.
Beautifully done. Thank you. Beautifully done. Can I get someone for our labor acknowledgement, please? Anybody? Somebody.
This is Jaja.
Okay,
Our labor
Zah, hey.
acknowledgement. Hey. We acknowledge that the foundation of wealth, industry, and infrastructure in this country was built on the forced labor of enslaved individuals, predominantly of African descent. Their stolen labor, knowledge, and resilience shaped the economy, yet their contributions were neither recognized nor compensated. Even after the formal abolition of slavery, systemic racism continued through sharecropping, convict leasing, redlining, wage theft, and exclusionary labor policies, practices that persist today in the form of economic inequities, labor exploitation, and barriers to wealth building for Black communities. We stand in solidarity with the descendants of the enslaved, recognizing their ongoing struggles and committing to dismantling system inequities that uphold their marginalization. We commit to identifying ways to invest in Black-owned businesses and Black-led organizations to support policies that address the racial wealth gap, to uplift and protect Black culture and intellectual labor, and center Black leadership, centering their leadership and guidance. Nastasia.
Oh, Miss Zaza, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Now we're creating this liberated space. We're creating and we're fostering and holding liberated space. And in doing so, we want to remind ourselves about what our community agreements are. And so I'll lead us off with the first one, and then people just start to popcorn in if you may, or if you will. Move up, move back. If you tend to use your voice often, consider moving back, vice versa. Somebody take this next one. Chris, you came from you.
Stay
Stay
engaged,
engaged.
remove distractions, and access needs in order to be present.
Oh, I know we're on a virtual space, but we ask that folks continue to stay engaged. Somebody else.
Every voice is important. Take space, make space, regardless of experience, age.
Oh, that part for sure.
Yeah.
I think it got cut off a little. There we go.
I think so too.
Title, etc. We all have something to contribute.
That's right. Yes, we do. Somebody take the listen
one.
actively.
I'll take this one. Yeah. Listen actively and compassionately. Try to understand before understood. Before
Ooh,
being
good one,
understood,
Kenya.
sorry.
Yes. Nice. Make room.
Make room for multiple perspectives at once. Think beyond binaries.
That's right. Be willing.
Be willing to be messy and stay flexible. Learning and growing can feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, super uncomfortable sometimes, but we're all in community together. Good one. Throw glitter, not shade. Invest in yourself, invest in each other. And this one that Dr. Green or Lamont Green suggested, this oops, ouch, whoa. And so that was another one. I think that's it. Are we good with our community agreements, our working community agreements? Are there any ones that we want to add? Yes, no, maybe so? Okay, cool. Good deal. All right, let's get into the Do It for the Culture. New folks on the line, we do a Do It for the Culture every single month to acknowledge our contributions to our work, to acknowledge the culture in which we live in, to acknowledge our personal and professional networkings, right? And so, in honor and celebration of Black History Month, I bring you some inspirational quotes from Black figures.
You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness. But still, like life, I'll rise.
I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality.
We declare our right on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary.
Soul has no color, no shape, no form. And you have the power to change perception, to inspire and empower, and to show people how to embrace their complications and see the flaws and the true beauty and strength that's inside all of us.
That's right. I have wrestled with an alligator. I done tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail. Only last week, I murdered a rock, injured a stone, hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean, I make medicine sick.
Change will not come if we wait for some other person or if we wait for some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
For those who marched, and for those who prayed, and for those who sang and bled, and for those who believed, and for those who died, I stand as 10,000 to the 10th power.
All right, so that's just to get us started, right? With in celebration of Black History Month. Now, I wish I had like a drum roll. Dun, 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 dun. I would like to introduce and bring to you all, Mr. Thomas Cotton. So if you know, last month, CPN, we were talking about resources and we were building, as always, we always like to build community in this space. And Mr. Cotton showed us or told us about the new G mentality, right? And so one of the things, Thomas, before you get started, you can take this however you want to take this excerpt or whatnot. Before you do any of that, one, we're here to celebrate you as a Black author. Space. Two, thank you so much for being vulnerable and telling us about this. And I think the book just released not too long ago. So that's something else that's really exciting. What was the inspiration behind the new G mentality?
Okay, so I'm gonna share this. Don't laugh. I was listening to Juvenile
Okay.
one day, And Juvenile has a lyric in his song Ha that says, remain in a G until the moment you expired. And for me, one of the things when I was younger, I used to gang bang. And I used to be in that lifestyle. And a lot of my mentality and everything that I do now comes from that G mentality that I had back then. And when I heard that lyric from Juvenile, he had this the Tiny Desk concert on NPR or whatever, and I heard it. It made me realize that just because I'm not in the streets, don't mean I'm not of the streets. It doesn't mean I don't still have that G. And that G mentality, though, inside of me has changed so much and has evolved so much into the amount of impact and influence that I have in community, in politics, in academia, in so many different areas that I just realized I'm just a new G. And from there, it all made sense.
Nice. Okay, my silence was me trying to look up the Juvenile song.
Okay. Yeah. It's the hook. It's the hook to the song Ha. And just look,
It's the hook
I
to the
never
song
heard it
Hot.
that way. Ha, H-A.
Oh,
And yeah, you're on a paper chase, you got your block on lock, remain in the G until the moment you expire, you handle your biz, you make nothing out of something. It says something out of nothing. I just kind of changed it. Or nothing out of something, or it flips it. It's supposed to say something out of nothing, or yeah. So, anyways, that's where it came, and so that part just made me go. The reality is, I am who I am. My experience is my experience. And I've watched too many people change their lives from the street hustle, from the hard knocks of life, from prison, from so many different areas to the point where they're influencers. But we forget that the dignity that they carry themselves with in these new spaces, it comes from somewhere. And there's something deep inside. And that's what I want to share in this book. The excerpt that I'm going to share today, I know we don't have a lot of time. It's going to be roughly about 10 minutes, if that's okay. And the only reason why
yes.
I try to cut it down, but I want everybody to get a full experience of why the new G mentality is so important. And so if that's okay with you, I can jump over if we need a little more time, less time. Okay, we're good. All right. So I'm going to jump in. You see the book on screen. This is it. You notice that the chess pieces are coming together and we're forming our own royalty in the way it should be. And so investing in your development and not your demise. I'm going to read the introduction only. So if you want to hear a lot of the details on how this is going to be done, go ahead and order the book. It's in there. But let me just jump in and we'll get going. All right, the new G mentality is rooted in giving grace to people who want better lives, who try to make that happen with their current options. It's not about having them focus on what's wrong, but encourage them to elevate themselves without the current risk. So many times people forget that individuals and gangs face several challenges in their daily lives that they're fighting to survive to build their lives. Although the works of the G's can be put in can be considered unlawful or unproductive. For those who don't know, a G is a gangster. It can be unlawful or unproductive. Those in that lifestyle put their blood, sweat, and tears into their survival. They continue building a significant connection to that lifestyle through their daily work and day-to-day interactions. It connects to a sense of love, loyalty, respect, power, and family. There is a sense of belonging for several reasons: the connection to where they live, daily engagement with the ones in the fight with them, and honoring those lost to death or the criminal justice system. It takes an extreme amount of effort each day to figure out ways to overcome the oppressive forces and death at every turn and keep the strong desire to make it. But usually, it's defined by grit and determination. The root of grit and determination is the same for many people who wake up and go to a job that they hate or someone who is building a business. The difference lies in where the effort is directed and the opportunities available based on one's starting point in life. With all the gangbanging in my hometown and being close to LA growing up, I was connected to the lifestyle. However, my insight into gangs expanded when I started branching out to other cities. There were different sets of Crips and Bloods, along with many gangs I have never heard of. Once I went to prison, my experience expanded even more. For example, I learned a lot about the history of LA and California gangs. I also learned how gangs from the Midwest, the South, the East Coast, and many other affiliations were formed. Hearing the different OGs talk about the history and how things started for them and the people they were affiliated with blew my mind. The interesting thing about these conversations was the many similarities, no matter where someone was from. One story confirmed by many people was the origin of the Crips and Bloods rivalry that didn't begin until the early 70s and grew from there. Now there are thousands of Crips and Bloods across America. To think that a movement was built off a small group of people who disagreed and chose sides, and the rest is history. This is significant because at the time of this writing, we are looking at about 50 years of history of doing the same thing without producing the necessary change for people and communities impacted by gangs. Skyrocketing rates of incarceration and death, coupled with the poverty that has a chokehold in most gang neighborhoods, makes finding hope and the ability to do something different a major challenge. Due to policies, laws, structural inequities, and other challenges in underserved communities with gangs, much hasn't changed in 50 years. Because of this, most current gang members now, who weren't around during their origin, but have jumped into the lifestyle to perpetuate the same madness. It's a part of the struggle to survive against the odds that don't favor overcoming barriers, trauma, or oppression. Gangs have been around for decades, some for over a century, so we could determine that they're not going anywhere. Efforts to dismantle or disband gangs have repeatedly failed. Therefore, trying to change gangs by breaking them up is impossible because it's attempting to tear people away from those that they're most connected to. It's like tearing someone away from their family. Even though trying to tear them apart is not an effective route, it's understandable why that seems to be the best option. The best chance for people, families, and communities to improve is for the gang culture to improve. Enhancing existing infrastructures and learning to empower everyone around will elevate the family and community they're a part of. The people in gangs are crucial to developing and protecting families and communities. The main benefit of making this change is personal safety and elevation. Gang networks operate much like legitimate social networks, despite different objectives and outcomes. The structure of these networks include work opportunities, hierarchies, divisions of labor, communication channels, facilitating their activities, and competition. As in the corporate world, individuals within the gang network specializes in various roles, such as distribution, enforcement, and recruitment. However, the nature of their products and the consequence of their actions set them apart. Instead of providing goods or services to benefit their communities, gang activity often results in violence, exploitation, and social harm. The comparison between the street economy and corporate America reveals profound societal disparities and systemic issues. While both involve strategic planning, marketing competition, and profit motives, their outcomes diverge significantly. Legitimate enterprises operate within legal frameworks, satisfying consumer demand and generating wealth. In contrast, the products of the street economy often involve illegal activities that further fuel illicit actions, extending beyond economic transactions to impact communities with violence, addiction, and destabilization. This parallel between the street economy and corporate America underscores broader societal disparities and systemic issues. However, it also shows that there isn't a workforce gap, but a lack of access to products and opportunities that cause disparities. This is where we can see an opportunity for seismic change. Individuals within gang networks can learn new business tactics related to corporate strategies to gain access to new products and distribution opportunities. These resources can begin to support jobs and other commerce for people from underserved communities to use their talents to thrive without the threat of harm. However, for this to be a reality, the root causes of these disparities require comprehensive solutions beyond targeting criminal activity. They need to move toward addressing socioeconomic inequities, providing viable alternatives, and creating pathways for gang members to come together to succeed without resorting to illicit means. The New G mentality is about breaking the cycle of poverty, incarceration, and death. It begins with supporting the Gs to improve their higher order thinking and become stable leaders who intentionally elevate their communities, providing opportunities for development rather than contributing to their demise. This development must lead to better living standards so they can be the catalyst to opening opportunities for others to improve their quality of life. People in gangs are trying to improve their lives. The disparities in the economic system make people desperate to the point where they do not care what happens to them. Remember, the desire for a better life is in all of us. Therefore, most people find their path to a better life the best way they know how and according to what they're exposed to. For gangs, the environment they are exposed to dictates personality, systems, hierarchy, identity, and so many other things. There is a beauty in their way of life, though. They are a part of a system that has structure and a family environment. Keeping the family safe is important. One way of doing this is by changing the options that they are exposed to for wealth, health, and community. Dismantling gang structures is not the answer. Changing the options of what gangs can do is. With new options, they can buy into a system that allows growth and development to adjust accordingly to invest in future positive outcomes. Many only know what they have been taught to survive, and those involved in a gang life repeat what has been done. History shows that with this mentality, nothing will ever change. The same cycles will repeat over and over. What cannot continue to happen is waiting for someone to come and save you or to make changes so that things can be fair. Through this movement, the hope is to see gangs use their infrastructure to develop their people, create opportunities for change, and support their communities instead of continuing to lose loved ones. It's about creating new cycles to combat violence and incarceration and to live to the higher potential to produce positive outcomes for those involved. It's time for the Gs to step up and be the change they want to see. The new G mentality is the movement necessary to evolve into a better life that everyone desires. If change is going to happen, it must start with the community and gang members, who will be the influencers of the desired changes. They must be willing to invest the same 50 years it took for gang culture to get where it is now to see the improved changes and difference. If opportunities improve within gang communities to have a better life, would that solve some of our major societal problems? I believe it would. It will take more than gangs to make this a reality. People from all walks of life must invest in greater outcomes. Together, we need to live out this movement to see what happens. Gangsters, be the leaders that you're destined to be and move toward your higher calling. And so, yeah, thank you. So, I don't know how much time we have for questions, but I just want you to understand my mindset behind this is we often overlook as a society the talent and the structures within gangs. I mean, I've watched some things happen in my life, and I know that there's a dignity that needs to be inserted into being a gang member. And not only from the standpoint of I need to stand my ground and protect myself and just this bullheaded mentality, but the idea that I have a lot to offer to this world. And if I begin to offer it today, and what is it going to do for my family and my people later on? And so, there's so much that I think that, I'm dedicating the rest of my life to when it comes to this movement and making sure that we start pulling these people who have the history and have changed their life into this space and really in an intelligent way, creating systems and structures and hubs across the country so that people can access these new ways of getting into a new space. Instead of investing in their demise, they're investing in their development.
Beautifully done. And yes, we do want to make space, if that's okay. We do want to make space for some questions and feedback. Lamont, I see you.
Yes.
Lamont, thank you for purchasing the book also.
Yes, y'all see, I got the book right here. This is a must read. Next time I see Brother Cotton, I'm gonna get my book signed, and really encouraging the Lived Experience Coalition Survive to Thrive. I see Brother Token is here. This book would be good for your community researchers to read too. It is powerful. And so my comment and question for you, Brother Cotton, I think the work you're doing is so powerful because most of the interventions and programs, gang intervention and gang programs, are about getting young people to step out of the gang life. And here you're talking about something that is, I think, so powerful as really transforming the gangs, because there's certain values and principles that is really beautiful and powerful. And it makes me think about like the Black Panther Party in the 80s when, you know, Bloods and Crips were coming together. And it makes me think about Black Wall Street and Rosewood, and how whenever you have Black folks coming together and providing for our community and protecting our community, how these systems have seen that as a threat. And even in this new administration with Project 2025 and all that rigmarole, how that's even an attempt to send Black and Brown and Indigenous people back, right? And fearing about sharing power and equality and justice for all. And then how they use that lie of race to make us think that we are inferior. And then the psychological programming and brainwashing that we receive in public schools, that you started as a slave, and how we then begin to turn on each other and hurt each other, which I think Frantz Fanon in his book that Dr. Espinosa loves to lift up to, Wretched of the Earth, it talks about how colonialism and slavery, that trauma and injury is then passed on generation to generation, and that programming. And so I just think it's so powerful, because your book really talks about how do we purge and heal ourselves of the lies that we have told each other, and how, you know, Black and Brown and Indigenous young people could start loving each other and being stewards and building our own systems and business enterprises. And,
Yes.
and even though I say that and I get goosebumps, there are some systems that see that as a threat and don't want that to happen. Black Wall Street, Rosewood, we know how to do it. You know, crack cocaine was brought into the African-American community because of the type of power that people were building. So anyway, I'm being long-winded, and I know that, Brother Cotton, you applied for the Equity Capacity Building Grant, and y'all, I know a lot of folks here applied. We still working on it, y'all. We trying to make sure everyone could get funding, so we try to make sure we talk with everyone and work that all out. So we ain't forgotten about y'all. So we pushing. But your project is really interesting too, Brother Cotton. Is there anything you wanted to share about the work that you got brewing with this Equity Capacity Building Grant?
Yeah, so everything you shared is my heartbeat. It's the Rosewoods, it's the Black Wall Streets, it's everything that I've watched people build. It's the history. When I think of civil rights, you took a leader out and the civil rights kind of scrambled a little bit. It was never the same. My idea of even building this, there's a scary sense to it, because I know I'm going against not only like governmental structures and inequities and everything, but I'm literally fighting the main way that people make money in neighborhoods. And I'm asking you to take a step back and go struggle a little bit in order to make something big happen later on. And so I know there's going to be a lot of pushback, but the way I'm looking at this pushback, and this is, you know, what I submitted, part of what I submitted to you all, is that it's not just going to be me. I can't have this wrapped around me. From the beginning, it has to start with the circle of experts. And the circle of experts is now called the commission. And the commission is, I've always said this thing, there's two reasons behind it. The commission is, we're not in competition, we're in co-mission. We're always in a co-mission. And then I went to the Mob Museum in Las Vegas, and in there, the group of the board of the mob was called the commission. And I was like, how am I'm gonna reclaim that, because I want that to be reclaimed, that we're on co-mission together. And so we're looking at developing hubs across the country, 7 different hubs with many different leaders that allow us to engage differently. We have the blueprint from the Black Panthers. We have the blueprint from all these other things that have happened in the past. We know what the opposition is, and we know that they can get even shystier. We know if you're gonna, you can steal a country from somebody, you can steal a neighborhood. So we know that there's a lot of shystiness, but we also know we have to believe in the power of our people. We have to believe that there's so much more. If I ask anybody on this call or anywhere, do you want to be in a bad situation? 100% of the answers is no. I've asked over 15,000 people that question. And I've asked everybody the same question. Do you want your life to be better? 100% of all answers is yes. I do. Now we just need to change the way we get there. And that's what that's what this whole movement's about. It's about creating the structures, it's about slowly implementing, creating momentum, and continually changing our people within. We don't need the help from anyone else. We need support from people who want to support us, and those who are opposed to us, so be it. But we need to do this. It's mandatory. Zaza.
Yes, thank you for that. And thank you for reading it. I too bought the book, and I bought it because in my family, the gang mentality, even though they're from Eugene, Oregon, when the Crips and the Bloods came in, I thought these is wannabes, right? Because we didn't even have that kind of environment. Yet they ended up going to prison. And so what I'm doing is I'm purchasing this book for each of my nephews and my son who went to prison so that they can get an understanding about that. And I also wanted to share, when I was property managing in Berkeley, that's when they had the Black Street Gang, the Bonar Gang, the Black Guerrillas, the 69th Street Gang, and my apartment complex was like, the people in the complex were not gang members, but the dealers were on the outside. And I remember this guy, his name was Marcel. He was 15. And he was so incredibly intelligent. And the whole system of how they ran their gang with the headphones on, talking to each other, point people. And I walked up to him, I said, do you know you could be a CEO? I said, if you take this energy and this intelligence that you're using to slang and turn it into something else, you could be running somebody's corporation, a Fortune 500. You know what I'm saying? Because they have the intellect, these kids, the dignity, and what they show, but they're driven into this type of environment based on the colonialization of this society that we're in, and then they're looked down upon. They're looked down upon, but they're doing the same thing someone else on Wall Street's doing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so I just want to say thank you, because now it allows me to share with my family the humanization of what they trying to throw us into a cage and label us and call us one thing, but we gonna rise like the phoenix and show them we something else, who we really are. So thank you, Brother Thomas Cotton. I appreciate you.
I just want to say that when you say, and this is one of the things I hear all the time, if you can sell drugs or if you can run a crew, you can run a business. But the difference is understanding the rules. In the street, when we start talking about street products and different other things, people will pull you aside and they walk you through certain things. They show you how. I was 15 years old cooking crack. And cooking crack is advanced chemistry. that's like literally, I have watched people lose all their product because they didn't know how to cook it the right way. And, you know, if you're selling crack and you lose all your product, that hurts. That's so a lot of times it's advanced chemistry, basically. I mean, it's not complicated, but it's still, you got to know everything that you're doing. And who taught me that? How did I learn? How come someone else couldn't teach me advanced engineering or something else? Right. And so if we create the space for these lessons to be taught, here's what I want you to think of. And here's the slow roll of, like, when I know the opposition that's against, the way you roll it out is slowly and exponentially. So each one teach one, we've all heard that probably at some time in life. I have a new philosophy behind that. Each one teach 100. Every person I teach, you have the mandate to teach 100. If you only get 5 out of that 100, they have the mandate to teach 100. And if they only get 5 out of that 100, and you see exponentially how it continues to grow. And so it's important that we empower people to be not only the people that get to benefit from all this new training, but the givers of this new training, the people who go out and market and bring people from that and create a new marketplace where 16, 15, 14-year-olds that are going hungry have the ability to come in and make enough money to sustain themselves. Because absolutely no one gets into something that says, I'm trying to tear my life up. No one that uses drugs and becomes a drug addict says, I was trying to kill myself. No, they just got involved with some stuff. They got around people, they got access to something, they got involved. No one that goes to prison says, I want to spend the rest of my natural life in prison. When I was 22 years old, I faced the rest of my natural life in prison for selling drugs. If I went to trial, I'm 52 years old, I would still be in prison right now. And all I was is a young kid from the hood that learned a lot of things, and I just wanted to live. That's it. I wasn't trying to put myself in prison for the rest of my life. I was willing to accept certain consequences, but there's not this idea that someone's trying to dismantle their whole life. We already have the whole system trying to dismantle us, and so it's like, I'm just trying to make it. I'm just trying to live. So, yep.
I see
Anybody else have any other reflections? Oh yeah, go ahead, Lamar.
Dr. Espinosa had a question in the chat wanting to know if it's available in audiobook. And she also said you have a great reading voice too.
Oh, thank you. Woo. You know, I was so nervous about, like, do I sound like Scooby-Doo when I'm reading?
No.
It is available in the UK. I have a friend in the UK who's purchased one on Amazon, and Amazon UK has it. And the other thing is the audio book will be coming out within the next few months. I'm working on that as we speak right now, and I'm not going to be reading it. But I'm going to get someone else to read it, and we're working through that right now. And so stay tuned. It's coming because I know a lot of people won't sit down and read it, but they will sit down and listen. And so, yeah. And so I'm going to make sure that that's up and running. I've interviewed a couple people already, see if they can do it. And so far their voice sounds like this. So I'm like, nah, that's not going to work.
Are there any additional questions or feedback for Thomas?
I just want to say this. In the book, you'll find out that I am talking directly to gang members, but I'm also challenging everybody else. I'm challenged because this movement doesn't happen without everybody else. Just like we can talk about the devastation in our communities doesn't happen without other people within our communities. When we look at the light that's going to shine in our communities, it has to take everybody being a part of this. So it's going to take people who have business, who are in commerce, who can teach investing, who can do a lot of different things, who have never been in this lifestyle before, but have all the tools that they can impart into these communities and to these hubs that we're going to set up across the country. And so it's important that we all get a part of this. So even if you don't believe or have any ties to gangs, read the book. It's for you also.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Can we get another round of applause for Thomas? Perfect. Thomas, thank you so much for, like Rachel said in the chat, sharing your wisdom. Thank you for sharing resources in the space, because this is a community made up of a lot of peer sharing and resources. And check your account a little bit later on today. It looks like a lot of people will be purchasing, so that's good too. How the question was, how are we supporting and uplifting Black businesses and Black artists? We are buying Thomas's book this month, and so that's exciting. Okay, if nobody has anything else for Mr. Cotton, I think we can keep going. One of the things, Thomas, we were talking in the background, we were like, yeah, let's just keep talking about the new G mentality. It's more interesting than PAR maybe. But we have to talk some about PAR today. And so picking up where we left off, if that's okay with everybody, with chatting about participatory action research. Okay, last month, Dr. Espinosa teed us up to what is PAR, what is participatory action research in context, right? And so we went through common threads, which we called core elements at the time. And so we're going to be walking through the stages of PAR and learning more about the threads that live within PAR, also what we had named core elements of PAR, as we think about utilizing the framework in our own communities. All right. So this nothing about us without us is for us. Nothing about us without us is for us. How many people have heard of this? Dr. Espinosa, why this here? Why here to start
So
us off?
as you and I were doing a ton of research to find, the most entertaining guides and tools and resources for PAR, this phrase comes up a lot, and it comes up a lot in all of the work that we do in our organizations. And every time I hear it now, there was a seed that was planted in my head by Arc for Justice when I took a class with Regina, and she mentioned, do you know where this phrase comes from? And I thought about it and I was like, you know what? I don't. And she'd like let us know. But before I dive in, does anyone here know where this originates from? This quote? Definitely, Brianna.
Marvin knows.
Well, I know how it originated for us here in Seattle. For many, many years, not being at the decision-making tables, that LEC helped us greatly start to turn around. We spent 30 years of having systems make decisions for people experiencing a problem. The advocacy call was always in front of elected officials, and wherever we could gather was nothing about us without us, So that's how we used it. It probably is, I'm interested to hear if it has even a deeper history than the 30 years we've been using it.
Yeah. I love that you just contextualize how we're using it. But what I learned was originally it was like the outcry, it was the slogan for the movement that Rachel posted about the disability rights in South Africa. And it made me like stop and think, why don't I know the origins of this phrase that we love and it is so near and dear to all of our organizations? And I thought about ableism, the erasure, not giving nods to where things are originated from. And I'm trying to be more intentional on that. And I just love knowing origins of really important things. So I thank Regina from Arc for Justice for teaching me that. And I just wanted to share that with all of you, like where this came from. Still laughing at the Rihanna comment, Ben. Great. So that leads us into the next video. Do you want to give any context or anything, Nastasia?
So you want to do
Yes. So this next video, so we teed up participatory action research, but we wanted to put some color on the context. And so bringing this back around this month, and I like to use things like painting pictures and creating stories. And so to put a little bit more color on PAR, we thought that this would be helpful. This would be a helpful illustration about how we may want folks to think about participatory action research. And so we'll watch the clip. We will get a little bit more versed or in understanding what it is, how it's used, and then we'll talk about it some. All right, let's play.
do participatory research with people with lived experience. Perhaps, like many of us, you want to respond to the call for Nothing About Us Without Us from the Disability Consumer Survivor and Peer movements. But maybe you're feeling lost in the sea of different terms used to describe participatory research. All of the co-words like co-design, co-production, co-inquiry, co-construction, or the participatory terms like participatory design and participatory action research. Don't worry, you're not alone. They can be confusing. We want to take the pain out of understanding the different levels of research participation. How? We'd like to introduce you to the ladder of participation. First put forward by Sherry Arnstein, the ladder metaphor has been used to explain levels of citizen participation, including in research. In this metaphor, for research, at the bottom of the ladder there is no or very little participation. Instead, people with lived experience are members of a group who are being researched by conventional researchers. In other words, the research is done to or on them. If we begin to go up the ladder, at the next rung, people with lived experience can express their views about the research, but have very little control over the research process, which is to say research is done for them by conventional researchers. As we continue to climb up the ladder, people with lived experience work together with conventional researchers, co-deciding through the planning, designing, conducting and dissemination of the research, which is to say research is done with them. And finally, at the top of the ladder, people with lived experience are leading the research, with or without conventional researchers, which is to say research is done by people with lived experience. Research at all steps of the ladder can contribute to our understanding of a problem or solution, but the higher up the ladder, the more participatory the research is, and the more relevant it is likely to be for the people the research is meant to assist. Okay, so what about all the different terms? Well, researchers have given different names to the different rungs of the ladder of participation. The bottom rung has been called non-participation, and the person with lived experience is described as a research participant or subject. The next rung has been called consultation or tokenism, which means that at least one person with lived experience is consulted but has no power over the process. Or perhaps a few people with lived experience are consulted and called an advisory or reference group. The next rung, where people with lived experience and conventional researchers work together, is where we start to hear the co-words, like co-design and co-production. Although these are slightly different approaches with a different history, they share many common elements. And at the top rung, research has been called lived experience-led, peer-led or consumer-led research, as it is led by people with lived experience. If you want to know more, download the co-design and co-production Kickstarters.
You're on mute.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Before we move forward, any questions around the context of what PAR is? Right? And so the video talked about how PAR is a collaborative approach to research It talks about how in this framework, it distinctively involves diverse co-creators. It is designed to address real world issues. It's designed to strengthen communities. It's designed to be this process of knowledge sharing and decision making and giving power to those most impacted. Lamont, I see you. Talk to me.
It's so exciting because we got some people right in this room that's doing the top of the ladder type stuff. I see Angel and Caitlin and others here, and Dr. Heather Mosher. And thank you. Heather was at our last community office hours and we were digesting stuff, and Melissa was out, and so thank you, Heather. And Heather and Ka are so interesting because Ka leads the research and partnership with researchers, but they're in the driver's seat. And so I just wanted to lift up that it's just so amazing. I don't mean to leave out others, but the Community Action Hub in Connecticut, they're actually doing this top rung ladder stuff. So I don't know if Angel, Caitlin, Dr. Mosher, if y'all have any quick reflections for us. Sorry to put y'all on the spot, but it's a privilege to be in space with people that are doing that top rung of the ladder.
Totally okay. Jumping in there, I was actually going to say the same thing you said in the chat. This is a great video. You know, we oftentimes talk about what participatory action research is in our work because the Youth Action Hub is staffed and led by young people with the expertise of housing instability and homelessness. And so all of our research, all the work that we do is led, and also Heather is like our main partner. What do you call herself? Director, I guess. But Heather has so much great experience and and knowledge and stuff, and she has helped to train people like myself to do this research, do this work, and so it's all youth led. So Heather has a great points of views about like how it is bringing this group together from the very beginning, which I've also been part of that process as well as a young person at 16 years old coming in to do this work, and I'm 26 now, so I've been in this work deep for 10 years, and so I just love talking about it. I love being a part of these processes, and like it is a great model. The work that we do, like having the community be a part of it, and we've done it in so many different ways, whether it's from doing large research studies on a specific like nonprofit, or housing provider, or doing like our photo voice project that we did with photography. So like participatory action research can look like many different things, and it's just about having the people that are impacted by whatever you're researching as part of not only the process as designing the questions, but doing the research. Like every piece of the pie is very important to have those folks who you're studying be a part of the ones doing the research. So that is what I'll say, because this video did an amazing job of talking about the different steps, and we oftentimes highlight what is tokenistic, like pizza is not payment. We oftentimes have to, you know, have that conversation with folks, but you know, this ladder is a great way of talking about the different tiers. But I'll provide some space for my colleagues to add anything in there as well.
I just wanted to say, I think the exchange of inspiration and learning between Ya and Ka is just really special. I mean, we don't even break bread like often. I've attended one of their meetings, and just to know that like we've had an impact on them and they've obviously had an impact on us. I mean, that's the beauty of PAR, is like the process itself has a ripple effect that you can't anticipate. And some of those non-data related things that impact you for, you know, years to come are just really special.
Thank you, Caitlin, for that gentle correction, because I said the CA and the Community Action Hub is the group in Massachusetts that are implementing what y'all started, the Youth Action Hub. So I just want to thank you for that. Caitlin was correcting me in such a gentle, y'all saw all that smooth, lovely calling in. So it's the the Youth Action Hub. Thank you.
Hey, Craig.
I just wanted to do something just for the sake of clarification, if we can, because people are going to see these two terms, you know, a lot differently, but particularly maybe Melissa or Heather, if you want, can you state very simply what you feel the difference is between participatory action research and community-based participatory research, because we're all going to see those terms interchangeably and everything else. I kind of know in my mind what I think the difference is, but I'm just wondering if you can do that.
Yeah. Melissa, did you? I'll just say one little thing and then you can say something after. I feel like it does come down to where it originated and kind of the philosophy and approach of where it all started. So participatory action research really started with Paulo Freire, and he really was well, I mean, there's a lot of like historical, like maybe he didn't start it, whatever, but basically it really became known during that time as a movement to think about and basically have people with lived experience lead research and lead knowledge production and lead the design of kind of systems and services. And so I think where it originated was around the role of a researcher, or in his kind of context, he was also within the context of education. So it was like, who's the teacher? Who's the researcher? Who has the knowledge? Who directs the, the direction of things? And so power, the issue of power and liberation and transformation really was at the heart of participatory action research. And then there were, I think, CBPR and action research, which was Kurt Lewin, really came out of academia, like academic researchers who I think really shared a lot of the same principles and values around including those who are most affected by a systemic issue in the research process, as a way of thinking about the value of those folks in that process and what the benefits are to the rigor of the research, the relevance of the research. But in the framing of CBPR, a lot of times, like, it can be very fluid about how much involvement people have from the community in deciding the question, even because of our system in which the funding comes down, right? Like, you have to have the definition of what it is, and then it takes forever to kind of do it. So like basically researchers end up doing a lot of the defining the problem, defining the research and the methodology to get the funding before they even actually start having this long partnership and community driven kind of identification of what it is and the question. But it really, my understanding is where it actually kind of separates from CBPR really is about the role of the academic, non-academic researcher, whatever you want to call that person, me, I guess, in the process, and kind of the relationship of who leads the actual research process.
I love that recap. I don't know that I have much more to add other than the point of PAR also is to improve social change. Like, that is the reasoning for the research, and not all community-based. It could be for increasing knowledge versus the actionable step, the actionable solution is how I would what I would add to that. But otherwise, thank you for sharing your wisdom on that. I think you've covered that really well. Was there anything you would add, Chris?
I think in terms of what you just said, I've always thought that, and I've certainly worked with some of the chief proponents and creators of community-based participatory research here at UNM, but to me, one of the big weaknesses of it, one is just sort of what Heather said, there is one way or the other, the academic side of it or the university side is a stronger player than the community. I almost think in terms of what you're talking about, that if a community had gone through a CBPR process, it might be seen as more of a training for them to then be able to shift into your PAR, sort of upper category of doing it themselves. But the other thing that I thought was pretty weak, and I think they're trying to change it these days, is that CBPR to me ended with the research process. In other words, they got their data, they had the community help them present it and everything else, just as you usually do with an academic research. But I didn't used to see anything coming out of that research, like a program or a project to address what had been researched. So I think they're moving in that direction. So I think, between the participatory action research and CBPR, it's it's getting a little bit mushy in there.
Come on.
I'm not going to let Dr. Mosher put something in the chat and just let it slip by. But Dr. Mosher, you mentioned that PAR is not apolitical. Could you please break that down?
I feel like that is the big difference with PAR, really. And I think this is also why PAR is not often considered from the academic kind of academy and the kind of National Institutes of Health and whatnot to be rigorous research. There's a lot of I could push back on that quite a bit about what rigorous research is. But essentially, PAR, I think Dr. Espinoza said, it is about social transformation and change. If you already have that and you're working with folks with lived expertise and you're deconstructing and thinking about what are the systemic racial structures or the disparities, and you are all about kind of driving change and transformation and liberation, there is no way to be apolitical. And I have to say, there is this this is the research academy thing where it kind of all started in science, where research is about finding the truth with a capital T, right? Finding the knowledge. And the idea that this philosophically is outside of us to find, right? And so research is about, we have to do a systematic process using all these methodologies to absolutely and limit our bias and create such neutrality that we think there's nothing that we are doing to kind of influence the results and we will get the truth. So that it's kind of philosophically based on those beliefs. And so I think I said last time we were together, really research is more diverse than that nowadays. It still has a lot of that, because if you go to funding, you get reviewers, you have a lot of people who are still very set in that same kind of worldview. But there are movements of researchers who understand there's absolutely no way to not be biased. And what is the issue around bias? It's about there's qualitative research which takes that on, about being more reflexive and understanding where you're influencing the research, which I think is really important when you're doing participatory action research, because if you are a researcher trained and have, whatever, your own kind of agenda and whatnot, you have to really be aware of your role in this community research, right? Is Angel, for example, as a co-researcher, am I influencing, do I have power over what's happening in the situation? What is my role? Am I supporting? Am I, is this process liberating? Is this, oppressive? So I think so yes, the bias should be challenged, but the question is, can you ever be objective and neutral and apolitical? And do we want to be? And so I'm just going to stop because I'm going to step back now.
Now you done got Carissa fired up. Come on, Sagittarius.
Scorpio. So even worse for you guys. So, um, but yeah, I just want to give you guys my perspective, and I'll be on. I'm a white person, cisgender woman. But I mean, I have my own struggles in life, but and that's why I'm doing this work. And anyways, but one thing I wanted to say, which I'm like, I just realized, and I mean, not to say I don't want you. Please just know I always have good intentions, and I know intention does not equal impact, but give me grace right now, you guys, please. I love you. All I have is love. But no, I'm just gonna say I literally took a graduate course on CBPR, so I just kind of feel like I could tell you a little bit about it. I don't always feel that confident about a lot of things, but I was just thinking more about, and I'm like, I feel like there's a bad taste in your mouth about CBPR. Somebody, or I don't know, like correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just interested to know more and maybe to share a little bit of what I learned, just because during that graduate course, which mind you, which I know that's all very relative in terms of when I got the education, but it was somewhat fairly recently, I would say, and it was a newer program specifically to address health inequities, to address healthcare and health disparities, and so we took this a whole semester of CBPR. So did a lot of research on it and had to learn about it. And there's modules. University of Michigan, I believe, has online modules. I don't know if they're still up there, but if anyone's interested. But during that course, we definitely learned about PAR, and it was my understanding that CBPR was actually a step above PAR. And maybe I'm misunderstanding, and I need to sit back and listen and learn right here. That's what I'm here for. I'm sorry I was late. Had another meeting, but essentially, it was my understanding, and that CBPR is more about the principles of CBPR, and I think there is a list of the principles, and to bring that as a researcher into the work that you're doing, and to understand and to acknowledge the wealth of knowledge that's in the communities we're working to impact. They're the ones who are going to have the solutions, and allowing them to select. So that is, I would say, where it's still the researcher. I think it is, and I can see how now too. It's like, okay, they're the ones with the purse. They're the ones with the power. You can't deny. They're the ones still coming in trying to do this research, regardless of whether they're like, oh yeah, let's get together and see what you want to address, and like whatever. And yeah, I can see how it could be maybe there's hidden agendas there, that and just where the money is. But I would say on the positive side too, is part of CBPR is acknowledging the community as it's supposed to be all co-learning, co-creating, and providing the support and infrastructure needed, training them to be able to do the research, and allowing them to select the types of methods and all the different aspects, and then throughout help looking at the data and analyzing the data, and being part of that process of approving what goes out to the community as well. Anyway, just want to share that real quick. And utilizing other things like popular education, incorporating different ways of doing things that are meeting the community where they're at, and in ways that work for them. So thanks.
Nice. I see Brother Cotton's hand, Nastasia, and thank you for highlighting that tension too. This is good discussion.
So everything Carissa said is really good about CBPR. I come from the world of CBPR, and even that's what got me to this space. I've been on a board for Morehouse School of Medicine's Prevention Research Center. It's called the Community Coalition Board. And the functionality of that board is, CBPR principles. And what I've learned, what Carissa referred to at the University of Michigan, they have the CBPR Academy. And I was accepted into that academy and learned over a year of CBPR through that academy back in 2017. And it helped me to understand the value of researchers. It also helped me understand the value of my voice. And what I'm listening to here, and I just want to know if this can be the case, I hear PAR as a way of where we initiate research on our own without academics. And CBPR is an academic construct. And I was able to write an academic textbook, be a contributing author to that around CBPR. And that was one of the things I said, is that we have to recognize that CBPR is still an academic construct, and that you have to be able to really be intentional about empowering the community in order to get their voice, accept their voice, and elevate their voice. And it sounds like that PAR is not that. And so as I'm listening to this, I had a thought, and I just want to know, could this be true? Could CBPR be seen as gathering research to be published and PAR be about gathering research to make changes? And the reason why I say that is because PAR is initiated within community, by community, for community, and researchers through any academic structure want to publish, and they have to publish in order to continue their funding. And so I think that can be a significant difference there. However, one of the things we've done on our CBPR board, the Community Coalition Board, is the way we elevate community is we do direct research. We have a community health needs and assets assessment of community and finding out what's going on. And it's for community by community. Therefore, all the results don't take 6-7 years to get back to community. The results get back to community immediately. And I think that's something that PAR would do also. So I just want to know, am I on the right track with that thinking, or type of thoughts do you have?
I think, and Dr. Espinosa or Heather, I don't know if you want to take this, but I think that PAR can be published too, but I think you're right. Like a lot of times within the academic institution, there is like disseminating the findings, and all of those things are super critically important, where with PAR, they may use a host of ways to share those findings, but it's going to probably be driven more around the social change aspects and building community power aspects. But I don't think PAR is limited in any way, but it's more like driven by those community researchers. Yeah. I see Heather shaking her head and Angel, so I don't know if I missed that, because I'm not a PAR CBPR expert, but I love it. But Heather, you have any reflections to that before we go to Marvin?
I was just going to say the question really is, in terms of the focus of dissemination of PAR work really is about what does the community, how does that dissemination impact, like create the impact you want to see in a sense from the process, right? So it isn't a question of do you want to, is the purpose to do an academic publication or a journal publication? It might be if the audience you want to communicate and transform, that's a partner in that, right? So if that's like the way in which the community, the PAR process wants to make change, then, a journal publication, but most likely it's just driven by community and where they feel the research will have impact, right? Just exactly what Lamont is saying. Like it can be any which way, but it's really by community for community, change systems, transformation, and whatever that means in terms of like dissemination.
Yes, thank you. And there's so much richness happening in the chat too. This is so helpful. Like I'm learning so much too. So I'm really glad we're having this, because I never really thought critically about the difference between CBPR and PAR. I just thought, oh, these are like identical twins almost, but we're seeing they're more like maybe like second cousins. Marvin.
I'm going to tread lightly because I normally come in a very different space. The goal here is to show what is right in front of us, but not seen. If the only way to be seen is to become part of some academic study, then that which and what we know from our community-based, seen that one, elevating community starts with the language used to develop it. It's not led by, it's done by. It is not, it is working with, not doing for. So I often sit and try to listen and figure out how to not only use what we have now. We're going to argue over which one's is better. Hey, great. I want to know how to expand both so that it is an actual reflective of the communities in which we exist and that we stand with daily. It is a non-traditional approach to what the world tells us should be, or this is the only way that it will be counted. I hope that is not true, because we're building great stuff. Thanks. So my point is that both work. Let's figure out how to do it. Let's change the vocabulary around the rest of it that elevates community and puts the power in people's hands, as I once was. Thanks.
Amen, Marvin. And I might be seeing this a little bit slightly off, but I don't necessarily see it that we're arguing, but mentioning and talking about some of the nuances. So I'm being selfish because I find this to be so helpful to go into the nuance. But I hear you, Brother Marvin, too. Like, let's use it all, right? Let's decolonize it all. Yes, sir. Was it Chris that was
Jeffrey.
next? Brother Jeffrey.
Jeffrey was, yeah.
Hey, y'all. I have
Hey.
I've been between places and finally got settled and was able to get some Wi-Fi and so I can participate in this discussion about participatory research. I wanted to offer an example from my experience. Nearly 20 years ago, I staffed a process whereby women of color who wanted to represent low-income communities of color as policymakers. 4 of them were selected as fellows to record their experiences running for local office and to journal them, journal their experiences. And then we partnered with the University of Massachusetts Boston, their Center for Public Policy in the graduate school. And they created a website, a resource for people to go to learn about what were the barriers, what were the hurdles that were cleared, what were the challenges for these women of color who wanted to become elected officials. So the objective was for graduate students and other folks who go to the Center for Public Policy graduate school to begin to imagine differently about who are elected officials and what it takes to become one. And it was an extraordinarily rewarding and awe-inspiring process to see these particular women, to see their humanity and their wisdom documented and then made into a repository at a graduate school and shared. So I'm curious, thinking about publication and thinking about dissemination, it's made me curious to know what's become of their research. So when this Zoom is over, I'm going to circle back and see what's become, how they've often they might have been cited as sources for graduate work, and whether or not it's influenced policy in some way. So just wanted to share that example.
Oh, yeah, beautiful example. Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. Miss Chris.
Just very quickly, and I'm sort of sorry I asked the question because I'm sure I just took away the time from Melissa and everybody else, and I do apologize for that. But the discussion has been interesting. The only final thing I would almost like to say, because I do know what the two sides are, is to me, what is actually important is when you try to do it, how you actually do it in the field, because I've seen a lot of programs and been involved in some that call themselves either participatory action research or community-based participatory research, and they're hard to do. I mean, it's not that easy. You're talking about 2 different kinds of groups of people, but I keep watching for exactly how do all of the participants work together, and are they listening to each other and what it is, because it isn't such an easy process. So for me, it's kind of watching the how and determining whether you really think it's participatory and or led by a community at all. So it's just my thought.
I want to use our community agreements, and I'm going to say, I'm going to do an ouch moment and and gently encourage a calling in love. And I could be off on this, and I learned this from some other folks that really brought this. It was actually a Black woman in some work that we're doing in the VA space. So I want to give her credit, Dr. Daniels. And she was challenging the Veteran Administration to stop using the word field when referring to out in the community context because of the origin of what field is, with the dark-skinned laborers out there picking the cotton and toiling, which is honorable, amazing work, right? But we stigmatize and demean. And so how could we begin to flip the narrative where it's the community or the heart of the work? And I know that your intention is all good, Chris, right? I'm not, it's just that the challenge around, and even that word probably came from academic institutions, right? In the ivory tower, out there in the fields. What did we get this knowledge to disseminate it to the fields? You know what I mean?
And working with the grassroots people.
Right. All of that, right? And I get caught up in that language too. I catch myself saying the word pivots, and all of a sudden, it's like, how did this stuff seep into my soul that I'm now sounding like what do you call it? Anyway, I'll stay away from that one. And then another word too is minority. Ooh, I don't like that word. I didn't like that word since a teacher used it with me in the 5th grade. I'm like, who in the hell are you calling a minority? My grandparents didn't teach me that I was a minority. I didn't know what the term really meant. They were trying to count who's on free and reduced program and all different kind of things. And my best friend, Johnny Drislin, who happened to be white, and they were doing the raising the hands, and could the minorities raise their hand and all that? They had to break that down. And that was the first time that I realized, oh, am I supposed to be less than and somehow different and less? So we like to use the term minoritized, right? There. And I'm glad that we're having this discussion. I love Paulo Freire and participatory action research and all those other modes that we're talking about, like CBPR. And Paulo Freire in his book, he mentioned something that y'all probably heard me say this a lot, but it just brings so much life to my soul. He reminds us, and it's especially relevant during these times, that the power of the oppressed is the only power that can liberate both the oppressed and the oppressor. In all of our mythologies and all of our religions, we see this, right? You see the same formula, that this Messiah comes out of a slave or an oppressed race and then liberates everything in the spirit of unconditional love, right? All of our great stories and mythologies and religions all have this central theme. So Paulo Freire, also with Audre Lorde, says the same thing, that the oppressor looks to the oppressed to better understand themselves. So not only as oppressed and marginalized people do we have to liberate ourselves, but the liberation of humanity depends on us, right? Because when you're in that privileged dominant construct, it's very hard. And so Paulo Freire says, this then is the historical task, the present day task of the oppressed, to liberate themselves and their oppressor too, so we can all be free. And really, the participatory action research is so amazing, because in that process, you are raising your consciousness through the process of seeing yourself as a researcher. So like in this new G mentality that Brother Cotton has wrote about in this book, you are actually in a process as seeing yourself as a researcher, raising your critical consciousness, interrogating the lies that you have been told, reclaiming your power to know that not only do I have the ability to have a new G mentality, that I can join with other new Gs and create a whole new reality in my community and my world. And so it's really the way, I hate to sound so dogmatic, y'all, but at least I see it as the way. Y'all have to pardon me, I can come off real dogmatic sometimes. But to me, this is the only game on the planet. We all need to be setting up yas and kas and everything, so we could build community power, because these nonprofit industrial complexes and all these things see us as raw goods and pimping us and making money off of our pain, and it must stop now. And I hope y'all participate in the February 28th economic blackout. Don't buy from Walmart. Don't buy from Target. None of those folks that rolled back on DEI. If you have to purchase something, go to a small business, preferably a small Black, brown, indigenous business. February 28th, y'all, economic blackout.
Amen.
And we've been scorned. We've been talked about. Sure you won't.
And that's a wrap, y'all. Thank you for staying community with us. Talk to you later. See you on this hour.